Before we kick off tonight's Soccer Bedtime Story, I want to just say how happy we are to be back with you, soccer friends. We had to take a short break. Our computer gave out, and it took us some time to get everything back up and running. But we're here again, and we truly want to keep these stories going. A huge thank you to our bedtime ballers, our monthly supporters who make this podcast possible. You've helped bring us back, and you're the reason these stories reach families all around the world. If your family looks forward to these stories each night, we're asking you to take the next step. Become a bedtime baller today. For just a few dollars a month, less than the cost of a stadium snack, you help us creating new episodes, new moments, and new memories. Without the support, it becomes really hard to keep this going consistently. So if you've ever thought about joining, this is the moment. Head over to Soccer Bedtime Stories and sign up today. Your support truly makes the difference between these stories continuing or going quiet. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at MySoccerBedtime for behind-the-scenes moments, bedtime shoutouts, and more fun with your soccer friends. Alright, boots off, blankets on. It's time for tonight's story. Hello, soccer friend. Tonight's story begins in a place far from the spotlight, where life moves quietly and the game is played simply for the love of it. But not every dream starts under bright lights. Some begin in the between moments far from the stadiums, where the grass is green and the crowds are loud, and places where no one is watching and no one is expecting anything at all. This is a story about a team that had already gone home, a team that believed that the chance had passed, their moment already written and finished, and then, without warning, everything changed. The call came, the door opened, and with almost no time to prepare, they were given one more chance, one that no one believed that they could take. But sometimes, when nothing is expected of you, something extraordinary can begin to unfold. Before we begin tonight's story, a special shout out to some of our dedicated listeners. Cool Kid, Rampa Atwal, Christian, and Rachel, we're so glad you're here with us. We also want to send a warm soccer welcome to our new listeners in Puyallup, Washington, Milton, Vermont, McCordsville, Indiana, and Sanksmundham, Suffolk, England. Drop us a note on where you're listening from. We'd love to learn about all the new places all around the world. Now, a story about belief, about timing, and about what can happen when a group of players with nothing to lose decide to keep going anyway. Underdogs, Denmark's improbable run to the 1992 European Championships. There are some stories that arrive loudly, announced by trumpets and expectation. And then there are others, the quiet ones, the ones that almost slip away before anyone notices they were even there at all. This is one of those stories. It begins with a team preparing for glory, but with players already on holiday. Boots packed away, suitcases unpacked, lives returning to normal after something that felt like the end of a journey. The great tournament of Europe was about to begin in Sweden in the summer of 1992, but this team was not part of it. They had come close, finishing just behind Yugoslavia in their qualifying group. But close was not enough. Their story, it seemed, had already been written. The noise of the stadium felt far away now, like a place meant for others. No one was waiting for this story to begin. In fact, most people believed that it had ended. But far from the quiet beaches and still streets where players rested, something changed. In Europe, events unfolded that had nothing to do with football, but would change it forever. Yugoslavia, the team that had qualified, was withdrawn from the tournament as war broke apart in the country. And suddenly, just days before the opening match, there was an empty place where a team should have been. UEFA needed someone to fill it. And so, almost unbelievably, the call went to the team that had finished second, Denmark. It wasn't a grand invitation. It didn't come with time to prepare or space to dream. It came quickly, urgently. Players were contacted one by one, some on beaches, some with their families, some far from the game entirely. They were asked to return, to gather, to represent their country in a tournament they were never meant to play. Their manager, Richard Møller Nielsen, began calling his players back together. Not all would come. One of the country's greatest stars chose to stay away. Others returned anyway, quietly, without promises, without expectation. Among them were players who would soon carry the weight of something far bigger than football. They arrived in Sweden not as favorites, not even as contenders, but as something far more uncertain. A team brought together at the last moment. A team with almost no time. A team that in the eyes of the world was only there to take someone else's place. They did not arrive all at once. There was no great entrance, no moment where the world stopped and watched them come together. Instead, they returned slowly, one by one. A phone call answered here, a suitcase packed there, boots pulled back after days, sometimes weeks of rest. Some came from sunny beaches, the sound of waves still lingering in their ears. Others fell behind quiet homes and family dinners, stepping back into something they had not been expected to feel again so soon. The weight of representing their country. And at the center of it was Richard Møller Nielsen, steady and calm, gathering his players like pieces of a chess set or a puzzle that had not been meant to fit together again. Not everyone answered this call. Michael Laudrup, the elegant playmaker of FC Barcelona, stayed away after disagreements with the manager. His absence spoke volumes, even in its silence. Many believed that without him, whatever small chance Denmark had just grown even smaller. Perhaps it even disappeared. But others came. His younger brother Brian, then playing for Bayern Munich, stepped forward instead, quick, skillful, carrying both expectation and quiet determination. In goal stood a towering figure, Peter Schmeichel of Manchester United, whose presence alone seemed to fill the space between the posts. His voice was strong, his hands stronger, and though few outside Denmark believed in this team, he carried himself like someone who did. In midfield was Henrik Larsen, who had spent time in Italy with Pisa Sporting Club. His time there had not gone as planned, goals had been hard to find, and his journey abroad had been filled more with frustration than success. But here, back with Denmark, something quiet was beginning to shift, though no one could quite see it yet. Then there was Kim Vilfort of Brøndby. He came not just as a player, but as a father carrying something much heavier than the tournament itself. His young daughter was seriously ill, and every moment away from home was a difficult choice. Still, he joined teammates, stepping into a story that felt uncertain, even fragile. Around them were others, players from across clubs in Denmark and Europe, some well known, many not. They were not the most famous, nor the most feared, nor the most expected, but they were there, together. And yet, even as they gathered, something was missing. Time. There was no long training camp waiting for them, No weeks spent preparing, no carefully built system, no chance to grow into a team. They had been given just 10 days, to barely enough time to reunite, let alone prepare for the best teams in Europe. Training sessions were short and uneven, shaped more by who just arrived than by any grand plan. Some players were still finding their rhythm, their legs heavy from rest instead of sharpened by competition. Others smiled quietly at how strange it all felt, like stepping back into a story they thought had already ended. There were no speeches about winning, no promises of what might come, only a simple understanding shared without need to be spoken. They were not ready, but they were here. When the first whistle finally came, it did not feel like the beginning of a great adventure. It felt uncertain, scary, perhaps a misadventure. Their opening match in Malmo against England, a team built on strength, structure, and experience. Under their manager, they played a direct physical style, looking to move the ball forward quickly, to cross early, to rely on powerful runners and disciplined shape. Players like Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer waited for chances, while Pal Gascoigne carried creativity through midfield, capable of unlocking a game with a single moment. This was a team that expected control. Denmark did not rush. They did not try to match England's strength or force. They stood firm. At the back, Peter Schmeichel watched everything, his large frame steady and unshaken. England pushed forward at times, testing the edges, sending balls into the box, looking for that one decisive touch. But Denmark held their shape. Tackles came quietly, passes were simple, and slowly something unexpected began to settle over the match. Calm. There were moments, small ones, when Denmark moved forward with purpose, a pass into space, a run that almost broke through. Not quite enough to change the score, but enough to make people notice. When the final whistle blew, it ended 0-0. To some, it was just a draw. But to Denmark, it felt like something else entirely. Proof. The second match brought them to Stockholm to face Sweden. The host nation carried forward by the energy of their own crowd. Sweden played with discipline and balance, strong in the back, patient in attack, waiting for the right moment rather than forcing it. The danger often came from movement between the lines, from quick combinations and well-timed runs. This time, the air felt heavier, louder, less forgiving. Let's take a quick break at the half. If tonight's story has you hooked, be sure to check out our book, Soccer Mystery Chronicles: The Haunting of St. Mary's Stadium. It's the perfect mix of ghostly secrets, Premier League lore, and sibling sleuthing starring Zosha and Franya. You can find it on Amazon or at soccerbedtimestories.com. And if you want to help us keep telling these stories, become a bedtime baller. It's like getting a warm meat pie and crisps at halftime. A small gift that makes a big difference. Now, let's get back to the pitch. Sweden pressed forward with confidence, and eventually the moment came. The ball slipped into space for Thomas Brolin, a forward known for his intelligence and sharp movement, and he struck it cleanly, sending it past Schmeichel and into the net. Denmark searched for a response, tried to stretch the game, but Sweden remained composed, closing spaces, managing the rhythm. Another whistle, another ending. This time, perhaps expectedly, a loss. Now the path was narrow, very narrow. With one match left, Denmark stood with just 1 point. England and France, after drawing both their matches, were just ahead, while Sweden led the group. The numbers were simple and unforgiving. Denmark had to win, and even that might not be enough, because somewhere else in another stadium, another match would be played at the same time. Sweden would face England, and Denmark would have no control over what happened there. Their fate would not belong entirely to them. Denmark's final match was against France, a team filled with talent and expectation. They played with flair and attacking intent, comfortable on the ball, moving it quickly through midfield, looking to create chances through skill and imagination. At the front, Jean-Pierre Papin, one of Europe's most critical finishers, waited for even the smallest opening, while Eric Cantona brought vision, creativity, and unpredictability, capable of turning moment into something unforgettable. To many, the match had already been decided. But Denmark stepped onto the field with something different. Not confidence, not certainty, but belief. Just 8 minutes in, the ball moved forward and found Henrik Larsen. This time there was no hesitation. He struck cleanly and the ball hit the net. A beginning. France responded as great teams do. The pressure grew, the passes quickened, and the ball moved faster through midfield. Eventually, Papin found his moment, guiding the ball home with calm precision. The match returned to balance, and with it came tension. Time moved differently. Now, every minute felt heavier, every touch more important. And still, somewhere else, another game was unfolding. Was Sweden leading? Was England coming back? Was it enough? No one on the field could know for sure. All Denmark could do was keep playing. Late in the match, with the weight of everything pressing down, the ball was worked forward one more. A cross lifted into the air. A movement made at just the right moment. Lars Elstrup rose to meet it and guide it home. For a brief moment there was silence, not because the crowd had stopped, but because no one yet knew what it meant. It was a goal. Denmark had done their part. The whistle blew, but the story was not finished. They waited. And somewhere else, Sweden held on. England did not win. And slowly, quietly, the truth began to settle in. Denmark, who had not even been meant to be there, had advanced. Not easily, not clearly, but just enough. A door had been barely open, had stayed open, and they had stepped over the threshold. In the semifinal, the door would open to something even larger. For waiting for Denmark was the Netherlands, the reigning European champions. This was not just another opponent. This was a team dressed in bright orange, a team filled with names that sounded almost too grand for the moment. Marco van Basten, Ruud de Gullit, Frank Rijkaard, Ronald Koeman, and Dennis Bergkamp. They were artists and champions, players who had lifted trophies, scored impossible goals, and moved the ball with calm and confidence of a team that knew exactly who it was. The Dutch did not play like a team hoping to survive. They played it like a team expecting to rule the field. Their football was smooth and intelligent, built on sharp passing, clever movement, and players who could turn the smallest opening into danger. Van Basten was elegance and power in one body, a striker who could finish from angles others would not even attempt. Gullit was strong, graceful, and commanding, with dreadlocks bouncing as he moved across the field like a king surveying his land. Rijkaard brought control and calm from midfield, while Bergkamp, still young but already wonderfully gifted, carried the quiet magic in his feet, the kind that could make a defender lean the wrong way with the slightest touch. Most people looked at this match and saw only one way it could possibly end. The Netherlands would win, of course. Denmark's story would finally close. The little team that had arrived late, gathered in a hurry, and surprised everyone, would be thanked kindly and sent home. But stories do not always listen to what people think. The match was played in Gothenburg, and from the beginning the air seemed full of color and noise. The Dutch orange moved across the field like a bright flame, but Denmark did not shrink from it. They had already survived uncertainty. They had already stepped through one barely open door. Now they stood in front of another. And then, before the match could settle into the shape everyone expected, Denmark struck. The ball came into the Dutch penalty area, and there was Henrik Larsen, the midfielder whose name had not been sung by all of Europe before this tournament, the player whose journey had not always been easy, the man who had already found the net against France. He rose, timed his movement beautifully, and sent the ball past the goalkeeper Hans van Breukelen. Denmark led 1-0. For a moment the giants in orange blinked. The crowd seemed to breathe it in all at once. The Dutch had expected to control this story, but suddenly Denmark had written the opening words. Of course, champions do not disappear after one blow. The Netherlands answered with the quality that had made them feared. The ball began to move faster. Orange shirts found pockets of space. Denmark had to chase, block, cover, and hold. Then Dennis Bergkamp found his moment. With his smooth touch and calm finish, he brought the Dutch level. 1-1. It felt as if order had been restored. The favorite had woken up. The fairy tale perhaps had been warned. But Denmark was not finished. Again, Henrik Larsen appeared. And again, the man few had expected to become one of the heroes of the tournament stepped into the light. This time, with the ball at his feet and the chance before him, he struck with confidence. The shot found the net, and Denmark led again, 2-1. Now the match became something more than football, became a test of belief. The Netherlands pushed and pushed their attack, surviving like waves against a seawall. Denmark bent but did not break. Schmeichel shouted, pointed, reached and commanded. Defenders threw themselves into danger. Midfielders ran until their legs burnt. Every chance felt like a small victory. Every Dutch attack felt like another question Denmark had an answer to. And for the long time, they answered all of them. But near the end, with only minutes left, the champions found one more way through. The ball came into the box. After a set piece, bodies crowded together, boots flashed, and Frank Rijkaard reacted with the sharpness of a player who lived his life in important moments. He scored 2-2. The Dutch had pulled themselves back from the edge. For Denmark, it must have felt cruel. They had been so close to the final. So close to making the impossible even more impossible. Now the match drifted into extra time, and tired legs carried tired bodies through 30 more minutes. The Netherlands kept coming. They had more stars, more expectation, more of the ball. Denmark had something harder to see, but just as real: stubbornness, trust, and a goalkeeper who seemed to grow larger every time the ball came near him. Peter Schmeichel was everywhere. He moved across his line like a wall with wings. He came for crosses, he blocked shots, he filled the goal with his arms, his voice, his belief. Around him, the Danish players held on. Not gracefully, not easily, but together. Extra time ended without another goal, and so the match went to penalties. There's a strange quiet before a penalty shootout. Even in the loudest stadium, the moment feels eerily quiet. One player, one ball, one goalkeeper. A walk from the halfway line that can feel longer than a trek across a country. The Netherlands had taken Denmark to the edge, and the edge had become a white spot 12 yards from goal. The Dutch scored, Denmark answered. Again and again, the ball went in. The shootout moved forward step by step until Marco van Basten walked toward the penalty area. Van Basten was not just any striker. He was one of the greatest forwards in the world, the hero of the Netherlands' 1988 European Championship triumph. A player whose volley in the final 4 years earlier had become the kind of goal people remember forever. If anyone was expected to score, it was him. He placed the ball. Schmeichel waited. The whistle blew. Van Basten struck, and Schmeichel flew. The Danish goalkeeper guessed right, stretched his great frame across the goal and pushed the shot away. For one heartbeat, the world stopped. The great Marco van Basten had missed. Or perhaps it is better to say that Peter Schmeichel had refused to let him score. Now the fairy tale had its sign, its impossible moment, its giant brought down not by magic, but by nerve, preparation, and belief. Denmark still had to finish the job. One by one, the Danish players stepped forward and scored. Larsen, Flemming Poffelsen, Lars Elstrup, Kim Vilfort. Each kick carried the weight of a country slowly beginning to believe. Then came Kim Kristoff. One more penalty, one more breath. He walked forward, calm in the way people sometimes appear calm when their hearts are pounding. He struck the ball firmly, sending it into the net. Denmark had done it. They had beaten the reigning champions. The players rushed together, red shirts tumbling into one another, arms lifted, faces filled with disbelief and joy. The Netherlands stood stunned, the Orange Giants suddenly quiet. A team that had not even known it would be in the tournament until days before it began had now reached the final of Europe. And then there was one more match. One more night. One more giant standing between Denmark and the kind of ending no one had dared to imagine. Waiting for them in the final was Germany, the reigning world champion. This was not a team built on hope or surprise. Germany was built on certainty. They were disciplined, powerful, experienced, and deeply familiar with the biggest stages in football. They did not need fairy tales. They had trophies. Only 2 years earlier, Germany had lifted the 1990 World Cup. Players like Jürgen Klinsmann, Karl-Heinz Riedel, Stefan Effenberg, Thomas Havler, Andres Brem, and Matthias Sammer gave the team strength all over the field. They could press, pass, tackle, and punish mistakes. They were not flashy the way the Dutch had been, but they were steady and relentless, like a machine that kept moving forward, no matter what stood in its way. To most of Europe, the story seemed clear. Denmark had been brave. Denmark had been charming, cute. Denmark had shocked England, escaped the group, defeated France, and somehow survived the great orange storm of the Netherlands. But Germany was where the dream ended. The final played in Gothenburg under a Swedish sky that had already seen Denmark do the impossible once. The players walked onto the field in red and white, their faces calm, but their hearts surely pounding. Across from them stood the Germans in white, serious and sharp. ready to restore order to a tournament that had become beautifully strange. But Denmark did not look like a team that would be easily swept away. They looked like a team that had perhaps started to believe that their dream, their fairy tale, might in fact be real. From the opening minutes, Germany pushed forward with purpose. They looked for Klinsmann's runs, for Riedel's strength in the box, for Habler's creativity and quick feet around the edge of the area. The pressure came early, and Denmark had to defend with everything they had. Schmeichel was alert, watching, shouting, organizing. Every cross that came in felt dangerous. Every German attack carried the feeling that one mistake could break the spell. But Denmark stayed together. They had learned to suffer, they had learned how to wait, and they had learned that sometimes against a stronger team, patience can be its own kind of courage. Then, in the 18th minute, came the moment that changed everything. Denmark moved the ball forward, not with panic, but with sudden purpose. Germany tried to clear, tried to close the space, tried to push the danger away, but the ball came to Jensen, just outside the penalty area. Jensen was not known as a great goal scorer. He was a midfielder of work and effort, the kind of player who ran, battled, covered ground, and did a difficult job that did not always make headlines. In fact, he had gone a long time without scoring for his country. This was not the player Germany expected to fear most. But fairy tales have a way of choosing unlikely heroes. Jensen stepped into the ball and struck it with power. The shot flew through the air, fierce and rising past German goalkeeper Bodo Jigner and into the net. Denmark led 1-0. For a moment, it seemed almost too strange to believe. Jensen, the tireless midfielder, had scored in a European Championship final. The Nettish players rushed towards him, arms wide, faces bright with shock and joy. The German players looked back toward their goal as if trying to understand how the story had tilted so suddenly. But the match was far from over. Germany did not panic, champions rarely do. They gathered themselves and began to push again. They pressed Denmark back, looking for the equalizer, forcing the red shirts deeper and deeper. Klinsmann searched for space. Riedel battled in the air. Habler tried to thread passes through tiny gaps. Braham looked dangerous, delivering from wide positions. And again Germany came. And again Denmark held. Schmeichel became enormous in goal. He leapt, caught, punched, and blocked. His hands seemed to arrive just in time. His voice cut through the noise. In front of him, defenders threw themselves into the path of shots. Midfielders chased until their legs ached. Every Danish player seemed to understand that they were no longer just defending a lead. They were defending a dream of a nation. As the second half wore on, the pressure grew heavier. Germany's attacks came with more urgency now. The clock was no longer just keeping time, it was carrying weight. Every minute that passed brought Denmark closer to glory, but also closer to heartbreak, if they slipped for even a second. And then, with a little more than 10 minutes left, Denmark found one final opening. The ball came forward on the counterattack. Germany, pushing for the equalizer, had left space behind. For a moment, the field opened like a path through a dark wood. And there was Kim Vilfort, the father, the teammate, the man carrying a private sorrow that most of the world could never fully understand. He received the ball near the edge of the area. A defender closed in. The goalkeeper waited. The moment was small, but everything inside was enormous. Vilfort struck the ball low. It hit the inside of the post. For a breath, it seemed to hang between yes and no. Then it crossed the line. 2-0. This time the dream did not whisper, it roared. Vilfort turned away as his teammates rushed toward him. Around the stadium, Danish voices rose into the night. A team that had been called from holiday, a team that was not supposed to be there, a team that had been given only days to prepare was now minutes away from becoming champion of Europe. Germany kept trying because Germany always kept trying, but something had changed. The Danish players could feel it now. The crowd could feel it. Even the ball seemed to know the impossible was no longer waiting far away. It was right there. When the final whistle blew, the red shirts exploded into celebration. Players fell to the grass, others ran with arms raised. Schmeichel lifted his hands toward the sky. Richard Møller Nielsen, the manager doubted by so many, had led Denmark to the top of Europe. The scoreboard told the world what happened. Denmark 2, Germany 0. But the scoreboard could not tell the whole story. Could not show the phone calls made only days before the tournament. Could not show the suitcases unpacked and packed again. Could not show the players who arrived with tired legs and uncertain hearts. Could not show the father who had led his sick daughter's bedside to play for his country. Could not show the quiet belief that had grown match by match until it became something stronger to stand against. Denmark had not merely won a football match. They had stepped into the story that had not been meant for them and made it their own. And so the story that almost wasn't told because of one of football's most unforgettable fairy tales. Denmark had arrived late, with little time, little expectation, and almost no one outside their own dressing room believing that they could do more than take their part. They had started as replacements, as outsiders, as the team called in when another team could no longer play, but step by step, match by match, save by save, they became something more. They became proof that the strongest story is not always the one written first. Sometimes the most beautiful stories are the ones that seem to arrive by accident, the ones built from second chances, tired legs, brave hearts, and teammates who decide to believe in one another even when the rest of the world does not. Denmark did not have the smoothest road. They did not have the loudest stars. They did not even have the longest preparation. But they had trust. They had courage. And when their moment came, they were ready enough. Yet, like many true fairy tales, this one held both joy and sadness. Kim Vilfort, one of Denmark's heroes, carried his sorrow far heavier than any trophy. His daughter Lena was seriously ill during the tournament, and only weeks after Denmark's triumph she passed away. While the world remembered the goal and the final, those who knew him knew the deeper story, understood that his courage was not only the courage of a footballer, it was the courage of a father, carrying love and pain at the same time. Perhaps this is what makes this story last. Not only the goals, not only the trophy, not only the shock of seeing Denmark defeat the champions of Europe and the champions of the world, but the reminder that people can carry impossible things and still keep going. That teams can be overlooked and still rise. That sometimes, when the door opens even just a little, all you need is the courage to step through. And somewhere tonight, maybe on a quiet field, a small futsal court, or a patch of grass between two buildings, a younger player is chasing a ball and dreaming of something bigger. Maybe they feel forgotten. Maybe they feel too small. Maybe they think that this story has already passed them by. But perhaps they will remember Denmark, the team that wasn't supposed to be there. The team that showed up anyway. The team that taught the world that even the most unlikely dream can find its way to the places where the grass is green and the crowds are loud. Sleep well and dream big, soccer friends. Thanks for joining us under the stars. If tonight's story brought you joy, here are 3 simple ways to keep the magic going. 1. Become a bedtime baller. Support the podcast for the cost of a stadium churro or a match day snack at soccerbedtimestories.com. You can find the link in the show notes as well. 2. Follow us on Instagram at MySoccerBedtime. We'd love to see where you listen, who your favorite players are, or even what bedtime looks like at your house. 3. Read the biggest soccer adventure so far. Grab a Soccer Mystery Chronicles, The Haunting of St. Mary's Stadium, and dive into the world of haunted tunnels, hidden relics, and brave sisters solving the game's greatest mystery. With your support, we'll keep telling the stories that help kids and adults fall asleep dreaming of goals, teamwork, and faraway stadiums. Sleep well and dream big, soccer friends.